The rich don't work harder, they work differently. We've been told a lie, that the harder you work, the more you earn. That grinding 12 hours a day is the path to freedom. That exhaustion is a badge of honor. And if you're not constantly pushing, you're falling behind. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The richest people you know, the ones who've built real sustainable wealth, don't work the hardest. In fact, many of them work far less than the average person. Not because they're lazy, not because they're smarter, but because they've mastered something different. Leverage, focus, ownership. This isn't about shortcuts, it's about systems. It's about knowing where effort creates the most return and where it's just noise. You see, rich people don't trade their time for money. They design lives that separate value from hours. They understand that real wealth is not about how much you work, but what you work on, who you work with, and what keeps working when you stop. And that's what we're exploring today. Not the shallow version of work smarter, not harder, but the deeper habits, principles, and mindset shifts that allow the wealthy to work less and earn more. Without guilt, without burnout, and without sacrificing meaning. You'll learn how they think about time, how they build income streams that don't depend on their presence, why they avoid certain types of work, even if they're good at it, and how they shape their days, their teams, and their energy around what matters most. By the end of this video, you won't just know how the rich do it. You'll start to see where you've been sold the wrong map, and how to draw a new one. So let's begin, not with hustle, but with intention. Because once you understand how the rich actually work, you'll stop asking, well, how can I do more? And start asking something far more powerful. What if doing less is exactly the key to more? 1. Most people work by the hour. They clock in, they clock out. They get paid for their time, but the rich, they don't sell hours. They sell outcomes. This is one of the most fundamental shifts in how the wealthy approach work. They detach income from effort. Because time is finite, but results can be scaled. Think about it. If you're a freelancer charging $50 an hour, your earning ceiling is capped. 10 hours, a Sparks Wars, $500. 40 hours, also $2,000. That's it. Your income lives and dies with your calendar. But if you shift to selling a result, like designing a website, writing a sales page, or delivering a specific transformation, you can price based on value, not hours. The client doesn't care if it took you 3 hours or 30. They care that it works. Rich people understand this deeply. They seek ways to create outcomes that can be delivered repeatedly without their constant input. This is why wealthy people build businesses, license intellectual property, own equity, or create courses, books, software, or brands. They build once and get paid over and over. There's also an emotional shift here. People who trade time often feel trapped. They say yes to things they don't want to do because their calendar is their income. But when you sell results, you control the process. You choose how and when it gets done. You own the flow. One entrepreneur put it this way: trading time for money is like renting your power. It only works if you keep showing up. The moment you stop, everything stops. That's not freedom, that's a treadmill. So how do the rich escape it? They specialize. They identify results people desperately want, and then become exceptional at delivering them. Not through time, but through skill, systems, and strategy. They hire others to handle the pieces that drain them. They build assets that do the work when they're sleeping. They license, automate, productize. They turn knowledge into income. They turn effort into equity. And here's the beautiful part. You don't need to be a millionaire to start doing this. You just need to ask a new question. What result can I deliver so well that people will pay for the outcome, not the time? Because once you stop selling hours, you stop being limited by them. And that's the beginning of working less. Not by avoiding effort, but by shifting where it goes. 2. There's a quiet elegance to the way wealthy people work, because half of their work is being done while they sleep. Not by magic, not by luck, but by design. The rich understand something most people overlook. Your income should not depend on your constant presence. While others focus on doing, the wealthy focus on building systems that do. That might be a team, a piece of software, a sales funnel, an automated customer experience. Whatever it is, it's designed to deliver value repeatedly without needing them to personally push every button. Let's break it down. When someone writes a book, they do the work once, but that book can sell for years. When someone builds an online course, they might record it in a week, but it could help thousands of people long after they've moved on. When someone trains a team to deliver a signature service, they multiply themselves without cloning their time. These are systems, and systems are how the rich stop trading effort for outcome. One entrepreneur once said, "If I'm not embarrassed by how long I waited to build a system, I waited too long." Why? Because doing everything yourself might feel noble, but it's actually a form of control, and control doesn't scale. Let's get practical. If every sale in your business requires you to talk to a client, write the invoice, send the follow-up email, deliver the service, and ask for the review, you don't have a business. You have a job you created for yourself. But when you build a process that handles those steps automatically, or assign them to others, you free your time, your energy, and your mental bandwidth. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop micromanaging your freedom. The rich are always looking at their calendar and asking, what am I doing repeatedly that could be done automatically? What do I keep explaining that could be written down once? What takes my time but doesn't require my talent? Then they solve for those things. They build an FAQ page instead of answering the same question 10 times. They create onboarding emails that train every new client or customer the same way, without needing a Zoom call. They empower team members with templates, SOPs, standard operating procedures, and trust. They're not obsessed with doing more. They're obsessed with doing less by letting systems do more. This is what lets them go on vacation without guilt. It's what lets them spend 3 days thinking about strategy while others are drowning in execution. And it's what ultimately allows them to work less, not by avoiding responsibility, but by architecting their work differently. So ask yourself, where is your effort being repeated unnecessarily? Where can a system protect your time? Because when your systems work without you, you're no longer working to survive. You're building to scale. 3, there's a pattern among the ultra-wealthy that might surprise you. They don't just make money by doing more. They make money by saying no over and over again. Not out of arrogance, not to be difficult. Focus is more profitable than effort. While most people try to do everything, juggling multiple projects, responding to every email, showing up to every meeting, the rich are ruthless about their time and attention. They know that every yes costs something. Time, energy, sanity, opportunity. And so they say no, a lot. One billionaire was once asked what made the biggest difference in his productivity. His answer? The courage to ignore things that look good but aren't aligned. That's the heart of this principle. The biggest threat to wealth isn't failure, it's distraction, disguised as opportunity. Because not every good idea is your idea. Not every invitation deserves your time. Not every dollar is worth the drain it comes with. The rich have learned this the hard way. Many of them started out saying yes to everything, out of fear, insecurity, or ambition. But at some point, they realized the more scattered their energy became, the slower they moved. So they began to simplify, to prioritize, to protect their focus like a rare asset. This shows up in the small things. They say no to meetings without a clear agenda. They say no to urgent tasks that aren't actually important. They say no to roles, partnerships, projects, even people, if those things create more noise than value. And most importantly, they say no to themselves. They say no to the urge to chase every trend. They say no to the fear of missing out. They say no to overcommitting just to look busy, because they know that busyness is not a badge, it's a trap. Saying no doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing the right things deeply. One self-made millionaire shared that every Monday morning, he reviews all his current commitments and asks, if I had to cut half of these this week, which ones would stay? Then he challenges himself to actually cut one. It's a discipline, a practice in letting go. And the results? More time, more peace, more bandwidth for what truly moves the needle. You don't get rich by doing everything. You get rich by doing the few things that matter really well and ignoring the rest. So here's your reflection. What are you saying yes to that drains you? What would your week look like if you only said yes to what truly aligns? What could grow in your life if you created space instead of clutter? The rich don't get ahead by doing it all. They get ahead by knowing what's worth their time and having the courage to protect it. In a world that rewards noise, their wealth comes from choosing silence and letting that silence make room for a real power. Here's one of the most profound mindset shifts the wealthy make. Something that completely transforms their relationship with work, money, and energy. They buy back their time. While most people use money to upgrade their lifestyle, the rich use money to upgrade their freedom. And freedom begins with time. Let's break it down. The average person thinks, I can't afford help, I'll just do it myself. The wealthy think, if I can pay someone $20 to do this task, and I can use that same hour to earn or create $200, it would be irresponsible not to delegate it. It's not about laziness, it's about leverage. Because time, unlike money, is non-renewable. You can earn more, you can save more, you can invest and multiply it, but once your time is spent, it's gone. And millionaires know this better than anyone. That's why they delegate, not just in business, but in life. They outsource what drains them, distracts them, or simply doesn't require their unique skills. They hire assistants, accountants, cleaners, editors, cooks, drivers, not as status symbols, but as strategic investments. Every minute they reclaim is a minute they can spend where it matters most. Thinking, building, resting, creating, connecting, healing, growing. One entrepreneur framed it like this: I don't pay people to do tasks, I pay to protect my bandwidth, my peace, my ability to be present for what only I can do. Think about that for a moment. When you free yourself from menial tasks, no matter how small, you create space. And in that space, ideas grow, solutions emerge, clarity sharpens. But here's what often stops people: guilt. They think delegating is selfish, that if they don't do it all, they're being lazy or spoiled. But the truth? Trying to do everything yourself isn't noble. It's a bottleneck. It's unsustainable. It's a slow death of your potential. The rich understand this, so they approach delegation as a skill. They learn how to communicate expectations clearly. They invest in great people. They trust others to grow alongside them. They also ask a powerful question regularly. What's the highest and best use of my time right now? Not in theory, but in this exact hour, this exact season, this exact life stage. And if the answer is deep work, they delegate logistics. If the answer is rest, they pause, even if something's unfinished. If the answer is family, they log off, even if money is still on the table. They buy back their time, not just with money, but with courage. Because working less doesn't mean you're less valuable. It means you've built something valuable enough that you don't need to carry it all alone. That's wealth. Having the choice to spend your life on what matters most, because you've bought back the time to do so. Fair. Most people spend their lives adding a little more income, a few more clients, another side hustle, an extra hour of work. But the rich, they don't play the game of addition. They play the game of multiplication. They ask questions like, how can I do one thing that creates 10 outcomes? How can this dollar work for me more than once? How can I build something that scales itself? It's a different mindset entirely, because addition is linear. But multiplication, it's exponential. It bends time. It bends results. It changes your relationship with effort. Let's look at some examples. An average freelancer might take on more clients to earn more money. But a wealthy freelancer? They might train someone else to deliver the service, then take a percentage of the profits, multiplying their impact without increasing hours. An employee might ask for a raise, but someone thinking like the rich will ask, can I build equity in what I'm helping to grow? Because a raise adds, but ownership multiplies. This shows up in their money as well. The middle class often asks, how much can I save? The rich ask, how many times can I make this dollar work? They invest in assets, stocks, real estate, royalties, companies that compound. They don't just earn, they reinvest. Not just money, but time, relationships, skills. Here's a simple example that changed the trajectory of one entrepreneur's life. Instead of writing one article a week for his newsletter, he built a lead magnet that brought subscribers passively. Then he used automation to nurture those subscribers. Then he built a product that sold to them without him being present. One effort, multiple outcomes. That's multiplication. And it's not just about tech or automation. It's about mindset. One wealthy investor shared this. I stopped asking, what can I do today? And started asking, what can I build today that will still matter a year from now? That question alone shifted his focus from temporary gains to long-term growth. You can apply this to anything. Instead of coaching one person at a time, could you build a course or community? Instead of answering the same client question over and over, could you create a resource that answers it once, forever? Instead of doing marketing manually, could you build a system that generates leads while you sleep? This is the mindset of working less but earning more. It's not about hustling harder, it's about engineering smarter. Multiplication creates margin. Margin creates peace. And peace creates space for creativity, relationships, health, and joy. So here's the shift. Stop asking, what else can I add? Start asking, what can I multiply? Because the rich aren't doing more. They're doing less and letting it ripple out. 6. Here's a secret the wealthy rarely say out loud, because to many it sounds too good to be true. The richest people don't get rich by working. They get rich by owning things that work for them. That's the fundamental difference between income that's active and income that's autonomous. Active income is what most people live on. You show up, you get paid. You don't, you don't. But autonomous income, also called passive income, is when the system, the asset, or the structure makes money, whether you're on vacation, asleep, or completely unplugged. This could be rental income from real estate, royalties from books or music, dividends from stocks, earnings from YouTube or digital products, licensing a service or system you created, revenue from a business you own but don't run. Here's the thing. None of these streams are 100% passive in the beginning. They all require setup, strategy, sometimes even years of effort. But that's the trade the wealthy make. They work up front so they can rest later. They build the asset first instead of chasing a paycheck forever. One entrepreneur explained it like this. Most people work 40 hours a week for 40 years. I worked 80 hours a week for 4 years, so I'd never have to again. He wasn't talking about burnout. He was talking about conscious sacrifice to build something that would later support him on autopilot. And that's the mindset shift. Don't just earn income. Build machines that earn income for you. Rich people build structures. They don't just hustle harder. They understand that a single piece of intellectual property, a course, a framework, a methodology, can serve thousands without burning them out. That's why so many wealthy people are obsessed with ownership. They want to own assets that produce cash, even in their absence. Because here's the truth. If your income stops when you stop, your freedom is always fragile. This doesn't mean you have to be a mogul. It just means you need to start asking a new question. How can I turn this skill, this idea, or this offer into something that keeps giving without me being there? It might take months. It might take a year. But if it works, it could give back for decades. This is why the rich often seem relaxed. It's not because they're lucky. It's because they built layers of income that don't need their attention to survive. They're not just earning. They're planting seeds that grow, bloom, and bear fruit, even when they're resting. So if you're tired of trading time for dollars, start building something that doesn't need you to show up every day. Because when your income no longer depends on your presence, your life starts to belong to you again. 7. Most people believe success comes from information. Reading the right books, applying the right tactics, following the right steps. Energy is the real asset, not just physical energy, but emotional stamina. Mental clarity. The ability to make decisions without being drained. To show up fully to your team, your family, your purpose. Because what good is a great plan if you're too exhausted to execute it? That's why wealthy people don't just manage their time. They manage their energy like a sacred resource. Let's start with the basics. Rich people guard their sleep. They prioritize it like it's a business meeting. They understand that 1 extra hour of deep sleep is worth more than 10 hours of foggy productivity. They move their bodies not for aesthetics, but for regulation. They walk, lift, stretch, breathe, because they know a tense body creates a tense mind. They eat like it matters, not perfectly, but intentionally. Because food affects focus. Blood sugar affects patience. Gut health affects mental health. And all of those affect how they show up in the world. But it goes deeper. They also invest in people who give them energy, not drain it. One multimillionaire shared this. I used to keep clients that paid well but exhausted me. Now I keep the ones who energize me even if they pay a little less. Because energy is renewable. Money isn't. That's a profound shift. They build teams that lift the weight. They spend time in environments that restore them. They step away when they feel depleted, not when it's too late. And here's something else. They schedule space. Not just for meetings, but for white space, time to think, process, reflect. To most people, it looks like doing nothing. But to the wealthy, it's when their best thinking happens. Because when your energy is high, you see opportunities others miss. You respond instead of react. You create instead of copy. You connect deeply, you lead gently, you last longer. This is why burnout is not a badge of honor in their world. It's a warning sign, a signal to pause, replenish, reset. One founder shared that she blocks out Friday mornings as quiet time. No calls, no content. Just time to check in with herself. If I don't manage my energy, she says, I become a manager of other people's emergencies. That hits hard. So here's the deeper truth. You don't need more hacks, you need more wholeness. Because when you protect your energy, you protect your vision. And when you operate from overflow, not survival, you make better choices, attract better people, and build from a place of peace, not panic. That's the energy the rich are chasing. Not just productivity, but vitality. And it's available to you too. Not when you have more time, but when you start treating your energy like wealth. 8. Here's something most people never get taught. The rich don't work for money. Money works for them. Not as a slogan, not as a metaphor. Literally. They take the money they earn and instead of spending it, they deploy it. They treat money like a team of workers. Every dollar has a job. Every cent is assigned to go out and bring back more. This is the quiet engine of wealth. Capital that creates more capital. Most people earn, spend, and repeat. The rich earn, invest, and multiply. Let's break it down. When the average person gets paid, they look at what they can afford to buy. When the wealthy get paid, they ask, where can I put this money so it keeps working without me? This could mean buying dividend-paying stocks, acquiring rental properties, funding startups, lending money for interest, purchasing businesses, buying intellectual property, investing in funds or assets that grow over time. Each of these has a risk. But risk is managed through education, and the rich spend as much time learning about money as they do earning it. Because once they have money, their goal is simple. Don't let it sit. Don't let it sleep. Put it to work. It's like this. Imagine every dollar you own as an employee. Would you let 90% of them lie on the couch doing nothing? Or would you send them out into the world with instructions, expectations, and a clear plan? That's how the wealthy think. They don't get excited by spending. They get excited by compounding. They know that a $10,000 vacation could feel good for a week, but a $10,000 investment in the right asset could produce $100,000 over time and fund 10 vacations later without touching the principal. It's not about deprivation. It's about delaying gratification to create autonomy. One investor said this, every time I want to buy something big, I ask, could this same amount of money buy me more time instead? Sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes it's no. But the question alone keeps them focused on freedom, not just pleasure. And here's what's wild. You don't need millions to think this way. You can start with $100, with $10, with any amount of money you choose to assign a role to, rather than just letting it disappear. Because money that sits loses value. Money that's spent is gone. But money that's invested becomes something greater than you. It becomes a force. So if you want to work less and earn more, ask yourself this. Is your money working harder than you are? And if not, what's one thing you can do this month to change that? Because once your money has a mission, your hours no longer have to carry all the weight. 9. If you were to follow a rich person around for a day, you might be surprised by how uneventful it looks. No back-to-back chaos, no frantic multitasking, no racing from task to task like their life depends on it. In fact, you might even say it looks boring. But here's the twist. That boredom is a feature, not a flaw. Because the rich understand something most people miss. Success is not about constant stimulation, it's about consistency. While the masses chase novelty, new ventures, new hacks, new trends, the wealthy master the boring but powerful. The same systems, the same rituals, the same investments, the same high-leverage actions repeated over and over. They optimize the ordinary because they know that's where real gains compound. You see, boredom is not your enemy. It's the gateway to mastery. But most people avoid it. They mistake discomfort for failure. They think if something isn't exciting, it's not working. The rich know better. They use boredom as a sign that they've entered the zone where depth happens, where true thinking takes place, where long-term wealth is built, not in spurts of adrenaline, but in quiet repetition. One investor said it perfectly. Most of the money I've made has come from doing the same few things over and over, without getting distracted by shiny objects. Let that sink in. There's a phrase in elite circles. Amateurs get bored, professionals get better. And the wealthy? They are professionals at enduring repetition. Not because they're robots, but because they've learned how to make peace with boredom. Sometimes they even seek it. They create white space in their calendars, not to relax, but to breathe, to listen, to see what others miss while they're distracted by noise. Because in those boring moments, something magical happens. Ideas come, patterns emerge. New strategies are born, not from hustle, but from space. One entrepreneur blocks out entire mornings every week where she does nothing but walk, think, or sit with a notebook. No podcasts, no inputs, just me, my thoughts, and the silence I used to be terrified of, she says. And that silence, it turned into clarity, which turned into better decisions, which turned into more revenue with less effort. That's the power of boredom. It forces you into presence, and presence is where precision lives. So here's the question. What would happen if you stopped running from boredom and started using it? What ideas are waiting behind the constant noise? What strategy could emerge if you gave it space to speak? The rich don't fear boredom. They know it's often the moment before the breakthrough. Because while others are chasing dopamine, they're building discipline. And discipline over time builds empires. 10. There's one final truth that separates how the rich see work, life, and money. They don't measure success by how many hours they work. They don't brag about how busy they are. They don't equate exhaustion with achievement. Instead, they ask a different question. One most people never even consider. How free am I right now? Freedom is the ultimate metric. Not the size of the paycheck, not the title on the business card, not even the number of followers or the growth chart on a slide deck. For the rich, freedom is measured in choices. Can I say no to something that doesn't align and not fear losing income? Can I walk away from toxic clients, projects, or systems? Can I travel, unplug, rest without my world collapsing? Can I spend a slow morning with my family or take a long walk in the middle of the day? Or think for an hour without rushing? That's freedom. It's not about early retirement. It's about full ownership of your time. Most people are stuck in systems that reward sacrifice. They sacrifice rest for recognition, joy for productivity, time with loved ones for tasks that won't matter in 5 years. But the rich play a longer game. They optimize for autonomy. They build around lifestyle, not just livelihood. They ask, how do I want to live? And then engineer income around that answer, not the other way around. One multimillionaire shared this. I used to work 14 hours a day to make 7 figures. Now I work 4 and make 8. The difference isn't just money. It's how I feel when I wake up every morning. That's the real goal. Not just to escape a job, but to create a life that doesn't need escaping. And it's important to understand. This kind of freedom doesn't come from one big decision. It comes from 100 small ones. It starts when you say no to low leverage work. When you invest instead of spend. When you build systems instead of chasing chaos. When you protect your energy. When you value time more than applause. It doesn't happen overnight. But every time you reclaim an hour, every time you build a little income that doesn't require your effort, every time you simplify instead of complicate, you move closer. Because here's the truth no one tells you. You can always make more money, but you can't make more time. The rich don't just know that, they live by it. And so their lives, often quieter than you'd expect, often simpler than you'd guess, become rich not just in dollars, but in presence, in choice, in depth, in freedom. That's what working less and earning more is really about. By now, you've seen the pattern. The rich don't work harder because they're avoiding effort. They work differently because they value time more than toil. They stop trading hours for dollars, build systems that scale without them, say no to distractions, buy back their time, multiply rather than add, build income streams that don't rely on their presence, prioritize energy over endless execution, put their money to work, embrace boredom as a signal of mastery. And they measure life not by hours worked, but by freedom lived. This isn't a fantasy. This is a mindset, a method, a slow, intentional shift away from survival and towards sovereignty. And no, you don't need to be rich to start. You just need to ask better questions. What am I doing that someone or something else could do for me? What system can I build that keeps giving back? And what would it look like to live a little more freely right now? Because the goal isn't to work yourself into the ground so you can maybe rest later. The goal is to design a life that doesn't require escape. To do what matters. To feel calm while doing it. To wake up and feel like your time is yours. That's wealth. Not just money in the bank, but meaning in your work, margin in your schedule, peace in your mind, and presence in your life. So the next time someone tells you the only way to succeed is to hustle harder, grind more, and sleep less, pause, smile, and remember, the rich figured out something better. And now, so have you.